Welcome to the Deep Dive. If you're building something of your own, especially when you're just starting out, you definitely know the struggle. We're talking about building discipline as a young entrepreneur.
It's absolutely a core challenge, isn't it? I mean, that entrepreneurial path, it often lacks the built-in structure of a traditional job.
Right.
It puts the onus entirely on you to create momentum, stay consistent, and that demands serious self-discipline.
Exactly. And look, we've got a great stack of sources today, really packed with insights to help us unlock this. We're looking at everything from the science of habits, tackling procrastination,
Systems, communities.
the power of systems, and community. Our mission really is to pull out the most actionable strategies you can use, like right now, to build that entrepreneurial muscle.
Yeah, we'll dig into why it's so difficult in the first place, how to keep going even when that motivation, disappears. Practical daily habits, whether discipline truly beats talent, that's a big one, and why bringing other people into the mix can be such a game changer.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Why is discipline such a massive hurdle, particularly when you're young and, trying to launch something new?
Well, the material points to several factors, and maybe top of the list is just the sheer volume of distractions we face today. Think about it, social media notifications, constant messaging, sometimes even our physical workspaces. Sources talk about how these constantly fragment our attention. It makes deep concentration, what one source calls deep work, incredibly difficult.
Right.
So we end up doing, shallow work. It feels busy, it's visible, but it isn't where the real value gets created.
That makes total sense. It's like distraction isn't just stealing our time, it's actively stopping us from mastering the complex stuff.
Precisely. And another critical insight from the sources, and this is really key, is that procrastination, which is, a huge sign of struggling with discipline, it isn't primarily a time management issue or even a lack of willpower. It's often rooted in emotion regulation.
Emotion regulation.
Yeah. You avoid tasks not because you're fundamentally lazy, but because they trigger uncomfortable feelings. Maybe it's fear of failure or uncertainty, or maybe the task is just plain boring.
So it's less about being weak-willed and more about subconsciously avoiding feeling bad.
That's a really key takeaway from the material, I think. And without an external boss or some kind of predefined structure, well, you're left to manage those tricky emotions and tasks all by yourself.
Right.
The sources also highlight that just relying on motivation alone or having these sort of vague goals without a clear path forward, well, that basically sets you up for failure.
Yeah, motivation is great when it's there, but it's so unreliable.
It's totally fleeting. It comes and goes. What you really need is something consistent, something solid.
Okay, so if motivation isn't the engine we can count on, where should young entrepreneurs be focusing their energy? And this is where the sources seem to pivot, right? They make a really interesting point.
Absolutely. The overwhelming message seems to be stop fixating only on goals and instead focus on building robust systems.
Okay, goals versus systems. Explain that.
So goals are the desired outcome, right? Launch the product, hit a revenue target. Systems, though, are the processes that get you there. The daily writing routine, the weekly sales calls you make, the structured way you test ideas.
Okay. Like a sports coach.
Yeah.
Their goal is winning the championship, sure, but their system is the daily practice schedule, the specific drills they run, how they scout and manage the team.
Exactly. That coach relies on the system day in, day out, not just hoping the players feel motivated,
Right.
The quality of your results, whether it's in business or life, it's often a direct reflection of your daily habits and your systems. So when that motivation inevitably dips, and it will, it's your system that keeps you moving forward. And the research shows that habits, once they're formed, they become almost automatic. Your brain actually uses less conscious effort because they get encoded in the basal ganglia, the part that handles routine actions.
Okay, but that cuts both ways, doesn't it? Bad habits can become just as automatic as good ones. So how do you deliberately steer towards building the good ones, the ones that actually help?
This brings us to a really core framework highlighted in the material, the 4 laws of behavior change. Basically, to build a good habit, you need to make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying.
Obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying.
Got it. And building routines is a very practical way to apply make it obvious and make it easy. By scheduling specific tasks, you remove that decision fatigue. You know exactly what you should be doing and when. No guesswork involved.
Okay, that framework makes a lot of sense. So let's get practical. How do we actually put this into practice day to day? What are some concrete daily habits a young entrepreneur can start building right now? based on these sources.
Yeah, there are several really powerful tactics discussed. One is super simple but effective, using implementation intentions.
Implementation intention.
It's just the I will behavior at time in location formula. I will draft marketing copy for 45 minutes at 10 a.m. in my home office. It pre-decides the action for you, makes the cue obvious.
So you're giving your habits a specific time and place, takes the should I or shouldn't I question out of it.
Exactly. It dramatically increases the odds you'll follow through. Another one is habit stacking.
Good.
This is where you link a new habit to an existing one you already do. Like, after I finish my first cup of coffee each morning, I will review my top 3 priorities for the day.
So you're anchoring the new thing to something that's already automatic. Clever.
Precisely. You leverage a routine you already have. Environmental design is also mentioned as being crucial.
Meaning?
Making the cues for your good habits really prominent and visible, and making the cues for bad habits hidden or invisible, out of sight, out of mind, basically.
Makes sense.
And prioritization is key too. Using tools like, say, the Eisenhower matrix helps you distinguish between what's urgent and what's truly important, so you can focus on what actually moves the needle. Scheduling those essential, important but not urgent activities.
Yeah, don't let the tyranny of the urgent, the noisy but unimportant stuff eat your whole day.
Exactly that. And the sources also really stress the importance of having reflection and review systems in place.
Like looking back on things.
Yeah. Elite performers, whether it's athletes like Eliud Kipchoge or Katie Ledecky, or, successful teams like Pat Riley's Lakers back in the day, they consistently review their performance, not just to fix mistakes, but to find those tiny incremental improvements.
So it stops you getting complacent, keeps you pushing.
Right. It prevents complacency and builds mastery over time. It's about that continuous layering of small improvements, building on what you've already established.
That makes sense.
Yes, mastery is less a single achievement and more an endless cycle of refining your systems. And look, self-care isn't optional here. Prioritizing sleep, diet, exercise, it's repeatedly linked to better focus, more energy, and actually less procrastination.
Yep.
Even analyzing worst-case scenarios as listed as a potential habit sounds counterintuitive, maybe, but it can proactively reduce stress by sort of dispelling the fear of the unknown.
Interesting. Okay, we talked about procrastination being tied to emotions. How do the sources suggest we actually tackle that urge to put things off when it hits?
Well, beyond the scheduling and trying to understand the emotional root, like, is it fear, boredom, feeling overwhelmed? The material strongly recommends just starting with really small steps. If a task feels huge and daunting, break it down into its smallest possible component. The main goal is just to start. Even if it's just working for, say, 5 minutes. Set a timer, do 5 minutes, and then build from there.
Don't try to conquer the whole mountain in one go. Just focus on taking that very first step up the trail.
Exactly. Another really powerful tool mentioned is habit tracking.
Like checking things off a list.
Yeah, or even just marking an X on a calendar using a simple app. It provides an immediate visual cue of your progress. It shows you're building a chain, and you don't want to break the chain.
Okay.
This taps right into that fourth law, make it satisfying. Seeing that visual proof of progress, that immediate reward, it feels good. There's a great story about a stockbroker using paper clips, moving one from one jar to another for each call made. Simple, visible progress creating satisfaction.
Yeah, that little hit of satisfaction, seeing the X or moving the paperclip, that reinforces the behavior, makes you want to do it again.
It absolutely does. And the sources offer a brilliant, really practical rule for maintaining momentum. The never miss twice rule.
Never miss twice.
Yeah. If you slip up and miss a day on your habit, look, don't beat yourself up. It happens to everyone. The critical part is getting back on track immediately the next day. Missing once, that's an accident. Missing twice, that's the beginning of a new unwanted habit.
Wow, that's incredibly practical. It gives you permission to be human, to be imperfect, but stops one little slip up from completely derailing everything.
Right. It's very forgiving but firm. And the sources also connect tackling procrastination directly to accountability.
How so?
Building external accountability structures. Things like sharing your goals with a friend you trust, joining a mastermind group, setting public deadlines for yourself. It creates this sort of external force that compels you to follow through.
Especially when you're your own boss.
Exactly. Because you lack that inherent pressure. Even adding an immediate, maybe self-imposed cost or consequence for not doing the task can create just enough discomfort to make you start. It's similar to that intriguing concept Roger Fisher proposed about giving the president a knife tied to the nuclear codes, making the consequence immediate and visceral.
Right, making it real.
This whole discussion, it naturally leads us to that big question people often debate. Is talent really enough, or is discipline the actual driver of success in entrepreneurship?
Yeah, American culture especially, we love the narrative of the natural prodigy, right?
Yeah.
The person who just has it, success comes easily. You see it all the time.
The material we looked at strongly challenges that idea. Research on deliberate practice, championed by folks like K. Anders Ericsson, suggests that those vast differences between experts and, average individuals, they aren't primarily down to some fixed innate talent. No, it seems to reflect years and years of focused, deliberate effort. James Clear, actually, his own story is a great example. He overcame a really serious injury through tiny, consistent habits that led to both athletic and academic success. And then he built his entire writing career on the simple, disciplined habit of just publishing articles consistently. That eventually led to millions of readers.
So consistency and focused effort winning out time and again over just raw, innate brilliance.
It seems that way, and the concept of small wins is incredibly powerful here too.
Moments.
Yeah. Think of them as miniature experiments. They reveal what's working, what's not, but crucially, they build momentum and they build belief. Michael Phelps' incredible Olympic success wasn't just raw swimming ability, it was built on very specific keystone habits.
Right.
Like his detailed visualization routine before every single race. These weren't just prep, they were small wins that built his confidence leading into the actual event.
Okay.
Or look at Alcoa's transformation under Paul O'Neill. It didn't start with focusing on profits. It started with a relentless focus on safety, a keystone habit. That created small wins, empowered employees, and ultimately snowballed into huge improvements and increased profits across the whole company.
It's fascinating how that seemingly small, disciplined focus in just one area can ripple out and create massive positive change everywhere else.
It really demonstrates the compounding power of habits and systems, doesn't it? And the ability to concentrate deeply, that deep work idea again, is highlighted as being especially valuable precisely because it's become so rare in our hyper-distracted world. It's hard, it's mentally exhausting, but it's essential for producing truly valuable creative output. And people who achieve remarkable things often structure their lives very deliberately to prioritize that uninterrupted, deep work time. Think of someone like Neil Stephenson, who actively avoids email.
Right.
Or Peter Shankman, who famously booked a round-trip business class flight to Tokyo just to get hours of focused writing done on the plane.
Wow, dedication.
Yeah. So talent might get you in the door, maybe give you a head start, but discipline, built through consistent systems, habits, and that deliberate practice, that's what sustains progress and leads to those remarkable sustained results over the long term.
Okay, so we talked about accountability structures helping with procrastination. How important is it to actually involve other people, bring a community element into this discipline journey?
Oh, the sources put a really strong emphasis on the role of community and external accountability. Having an accountability partner, for instance, whether it's a paid coach or just a trusted friend you check in with regularly, provides that external expectation. It creates a kind of commitment device that motivates you to follow through, even on days you really don't feel like it. And even if you consider yourself highly disciplined, external accountability can often help you accelerate your progress.
Like having someone who's in the trenches with you, or at least expecting you to show up and report back.
Exactly that. And the power of social habits is also discussed quite a bit, drawing lessons from, historical movements and successful groups.
How so?
Well, we are heavily influenced by the habits and expectations of the people around us, particularly within groups we identify with and care about. We tend to imitate the habits of those who are close to us, the many around us, and those we look up to or see as powerful.
Yeah, it's definitely harder to bail on a commitment or slack off on a habit when your friends, your peers, or your whole community kind of expects you to follow through.
Right. Being embedded in a community where positive habits are the norm, or where there's that sort of healthy social pressure in a good way to stick to commitments, provides incredibly powerful support. Think about community meetings, whether in programs like AA or doing something like the Montgomery bus boycott.
Okay.
Those gatherings help participants learn new habits and, crucially, build belief by seeing other people successfully practicing them. There's something really powerful about that shared experience, that mutual support, in building your own belief that change is possible for you too.
So, wrapping this all up then, what does this mean for you, the young entrepreneur, trying to navigate this really challenging path? Building discipline, it seems, isn't about being born with some kind of superhuman willpower or trying to achieve perfect execution every single day.
No, not at all. It's really about fundamentally understanding that habits are the building blocks of our behavior, both the ones that serve us well and the ones that hold us back. And the critical insight, the liberating one, is that these habits are malleable. They can be changed.
Right.
You build discipline by consciously shifting your focus, moving away from just chasing fleeting motivation or setting vague goals, and instead focusing on building robust systems. It's about starting small, making those desired behaviors obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. It's about tracking your progress and leveraging that brilliant never miss twice rule to recover quickly when you inevitably slip up.
And it's also about tackling procrastination head on by understanding its emotional roots, by ruthlessly prioritizing your time, maybe using something like the Eisenhower matrix, and recognizing the immense power of bringing in external accountability and finding supportive communities to keep you on track.
Exactly.
And perhaps most importantly, really internalizing this idea that consistent, deliberate effort built through disciplined habits and solid systems is almost always the true driver of remarkable success in the long run. Far more, it seems, than just relying on innate talent alone.
Yeah, the sources collectively point a very clear picture. Once you grasp how habits actually work and you recognize that you have the agency, the power to consciously shape them, well, you gain incredible freedom, but also responsibility to design your behavior and, by extension, your outcomes, your results.
Your life, as the sources remind us, so far as it has any definite form, is really just a mass of habits. So the final thought for you to consider this week is this. What is one small, concrete habit you can start cultivating today, right now, and what simple system can you put in place alongside it to make absolutely sure you never miss twice?